Well, welcome back to a live version of Elevenses. I'm Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training, and for the next 30 minutes or so, I'll be bringing you some topical news, some possibly controversial views, and a bit of better biking tip as well. It's Sunday the 27th of June. This is Elevenses number 149. It's a fairly miserable looking day out there today, and I think there's a severe weather warning as well around. So if you are planning a ride out later this afternoon, do check the weather forecast. I think it might turn a little bit iffy. What have we got for you today? Well, the Isle of Wight Diamond races have been cancelled indefinitely. More news on that. Somerset Town Council have installed some ground anchors for parking bikers, which is good news. The highway code is getting an update to include smart motorways. E10 fuel, don't panic. I'll recover that particular issue. Some bikers seem to be totally confused about what it means for their bikes. New 650 BSA rumours are rife, and the Transport Secretary's approval of the Stonehenge tunnel is said to be unlawful. So more on the A303 development scheme. And we'll finish off with some chat about better biking and group riding, something that a lot of us do at this time of year. So stay tuned. We'll be here for the next 25 minutes or so. And don't forget, you can join me for Elevenses every Wednesday and every Sunday. If you do have a question, a comment on anything I'm talking about, suggestions for a future item, or any feedback at all, do drop me a line. I'll try to get to you at the very latest at the end of the show, and I will try and look in during the show and see what people are saying. All right, okay, so what do we got for you today? Well, as I said, this is show number 149, and it is live, guaranteed. I do apologise for the interruption in service over the last two shows. To say it was disappointing, I actually put in the work to pre-record two shows, and they were all scheduled to go out at the normal time of 11 o'clock while I was taking a few days off down in Devon. And I have to say, I was totally frustrated when it didn't happen, and I have absolutely no idea why. But unfortunately, the cottage that we rented down in Devon had no broadband due to a fault until Tuesday sort of evening, and I only spotted Wednesday's show had gone missing later on Wednesday, so I did manage to get that up at least on the right day, but I didn't even realise that Sunday's show hadn't run until Friday this week, last week, which was very, very annoying. They did get up on YouTube as I cross-post them over there, and they worked, of course, but the links on my coffee page also worked. But what happened to the Facebook shows, I have no idea. The Missing Wednesday show, number 147, actually featured quite an interesting video by Ryan of Fort 9, where he discusses where things are going wrong with electric motorcycles. And if you haven't seen it, it's worth a watch, because I think that actually he's hit many of the nails on the head. Although I don't think he's right on everything. Anyway, I did talk about that in show 147, so you can check out that if you want. And the Sunday show actually had a feature at the end. The better biking tip was a warning about the U in the queue collision, where a motorcyclist treats a stationary queue as something that's that can be passed at speed, and unfortunately collisions are all too common when drivers get frustrated sitting in a queue and turn round, and we did look at such a collision actually on Sunday. So if you did miss them, probably the easiest thing to do is head to my YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/survival skills UK. Don't forget that all important UK on the end, or you will get somebody showing you how to sharpen knives or something similar. Right, on with the news. Well, for me at least, one of the least surprising announcements of the summer so far is that the Diamond road races scheduled for the Isle of Wight for October, firstly October 2021 and then October 2022, have been cancelled for the foreseeable future. Now, that news was broken by the local newspaper, the Island Echo. Now, if you've been following these shows regularly, you probably know that the event was originally announced in August 2021 with a date penciled in for October that year. We were promised a major closed road Isle of Man style time trial event on a 12.4 mile road course, and it would have been the first ever professional road race in the island, and it was being touted as a significant boost to local economy. Now, not surprisingly, it ran into some difficulties. The reaction of the residents in the area was mixed at best, and local residents in particular were very unhappy, firstly at the race going through their villages in the first place, but also the possibility, or the likelihood, I would have said, that other riders would then head to the area and test themselves out on the roads. So they really didn't want their roads turned into a racetrack, either formally or unofficially. Nevertheless, there was some positive support from islanders. However, two things, of course, got in the way. The first was the totally unreasonable timescale, with the idea of appearing in August and then being scheduled for October. It simply wasn't going to happen. And of course, we also had coronavirus. So the event was fairly quickly rescheduled to 2022. Now, days after that, a rival consortium, although apparently with the same backer, which is interesting, proposed that an alternative Isle of Wight road race event could be held on a different set of roads altogether, and they were also plotting a date for October 2021. If you're wondering why it's so late in the year, the reason is that it would be scheduled for after the end of the British Superbike calendar. Then, not surprisingly, that event was also postponed till April. Again, the reason given was that the timescale was too ambitious. So it's hard to believe that the organisers weren't fully aware of the hoops that would have to be jumped through to get local and government approval at a national level, of course, as well as the certification of the course itself from the ACU, which is the motorcycle sports governing body here in the UK. So anyway, here we are in June 2021, and it now seems that the first event, the Diamond races, have been scrapped altogether. Now, it's not been officially confirmed, but the Diamond Races supporters group, and who was set up, they say, to support the event in competition to those who were against the event. Now, they announced the news on a post on their Facebook group. It says, "It is with great sadness I must inform you all that Diamond races will not be going ahead anytime soon. COVID and the impact of that globally has just made any plans virtually impossible to progress. I'm not saying it'll never happen, but it isn't in the foreseeable future. Thank you to everyone who contributed to this page and all the offers of help. Hopefully road racing will happen on the island at some point." Now, I'll point out that this cancellation has not been officially confirmed by the Diamond races organisers, but the event's website has vanished. And I have to say, the whole debacle kind of reminds me of the proposed Welsh TT road races, which were planned for the Brecon Beacons on some MOD roads a few years back. And it was given much the same fanfare. They featured riders riding around the course, and it was all going to go ahead. They had it all planned, and tickets were going to be sold and everything. And once again, the whole event vanished without a trace. And those with even longer memories will recall the proposed F1 circuit that was due to be built in the same country, bordering the Brecon Beacons National Park, and that was quite a long-running project that sucked in and actually spent Welsh government money. Now, there have been suggestions that there are some fraudulent activities going on. that I found a letter on the wight.com website dating from April, strongly denying suggestions of corruption and blaming the cancellation and delays on incompetence instead. Well, I just leave you to draw your own conclusions from that. Now, if you are a regular here, you'll also know that I'm fairly vociferous about the lack of theft protection for motorcycles. Mostly my criticisms are aimed at the manufacturers themselves, who continue to build and sell motorcycles with next to no theft protection. And also at the motorcycle manufacturers associations, basically. They seem to think that raising standards for alarms and padlocks is the answer. But of course, that means the motorcycle itself is not secure, and it's down to the owner to purchase extra protection at extra cost, of course, on top of the cost of the bike. Frankly, when you spent 15,000 quid on a motorcycle, I think it should come with some decent theft protection. But even if you do go and buy a £200 lock and chain, of course, once you've got it, what do you actually lock it to? There is a distinct lack of things to actually padlock your bike to. And the usual response from councils when this is brought up by groups like the Motorcycle Action Group is that there's no available cash. So I was rather surprised to see that Sedgemoor District Council in Somerset has given a local council permission to install these motorcycle ground anchors that you can see in the photo. They've gone into car parks in Burnham-on-Sea and Highbridge, and it's all part of an initiative to help motorcyclists keep their bikes secure when parked. Now, sadly, the bad news is that only 4 of these heavy-duty retractable anchors have so far been installed. So they're in 2 parking bays in Burnham and in Highbridge. But at least it is a step in the right direction. Now, the council apparently installed these devices following a request by a local motorcyclist, one Ollie Holm, and he wrote to them who said he was concerned about the spate of bike theft. And the town council spokeswoman was quoted as saying, Ollie had alerted us to available funding from the Avon and Somerset Police Community Trust, and with a top-up contribution from the town council, the motorcycle anchors were installed this year. Knowing that Burnham-on-Sea is a popular destination for bikers, the town council hopes to promote a more secure environment that helps give peace of mind. So it is a small start, but it shows that there is funding if councils are prodded to look in the right direction. So maybe, just maybe, a few other councils will start putting more of these ground anchors in place. Okay. Don't forget, you are watching Elevenses with Kevin Williams of Survival Skills. Don't forget too that Elevenses goes out on Wednesdays and Sundays at 11, when Facebook plays nicely, that is. The shows that are usually live, I have had to do a couple of recorded ones, including the last 2 weeks. But if you can't see them here on Facebook, do pop over to my YouTube channel and you will find them over there, all neatly arrayed, going back to number 1. Right, okay, so what else have we got in the news for you? Well, the highway codes are getting a long overdue update, which will, according to Highways England, make roads even safer thanks to the input of thousands of drivers, motoring groups and transport organisations. Well, I don't think there were thousands of motoring groups and transport organisations involved, but certainly they say that 3,200 people and organisations in total responded to their consultation, and their comments have been used to amend and improve the guide, and the updated version should be out later this year. Why do I say long overdue? Well, the updates include clearer advice on the importance, first of all, not driving in a lane that's been closed with a red X sign. It also covers how and where you should stop in an emergency. And at last, it also gives you an update on the emergency area signage that is used on smart motorways to tell you where to stop at least if you can make it that far. And finally, it also covers the, well, not finally, actually, there are a couple of other things to come. It also covers the go left messaging that's been used by Highways England in a recent advertising campaign. Have you seen it? Let me know if you have. They spent 5 million on it. I think I've seen one advert saying go left. And that produced some controversy. But anyway, the idea is that that's what you're supposed to do if you start to detect a breakdown. So what else is new? Well, there's guidance on the variable speed limits as well, which explains how they are used to manage congestion, something that many people don't fully understand, I think. And there's also information on how the safety cameras which are used on those stretches are ensuring, they say, compliance with speed limits and lanes closed with a red X. So in total, 33 existing rules will be amended, 2 new rules will be introduced. So if you're a motorcycle trainer and you have memorized all the rule numbers, to quote to your trainees, you'll probably have to go back and learn them all again. That's what usually happens when there's an update. So there will be a number of amendments as well to give additional information in the annexes of the highway code. So that's all good news. If you put petrol in your bike, and unless you have a very, very rare diesel Enfield, you probably do, you'll also probably know that the next couple of months are going to see a switch away from the E5 grade of fuel to a new E10 grade. Now, what that means in very short one sentence is that the amount of bioethanol which is in that petrol will increase from 5% to 10%. Now, one problem with this is that it will almost certainly increase fuel consumption, as ethanol doesn't produce as much heat when it burns as the petrol itself, the octane, which is mostly the constituent of fuel. The bike won't go as far basically on a gallon of fuel, or a litre if you think metric. Now, I covered the topic back in March, but it seems that there are still a lot of riders who are totally confused about whether or not they can use E10 fuel in their bikes. And that's probably due to some shock horror stories in the press. One I read said that millions of cars would be at risk of engine damage from the new fuel. Now, okay, let's put it all in perspective again. Firstly, E10 fuel has been available in some European countries for some time. So obviously, cars are running quite happily in Europe on E10. Secondly, all petrol cars manufactured after 2011 are guaranteed E10 compatible. Thirdly, many older cars are also able to run the new fuel as they were built to international standards, and the E10 fuel has been used in California for decades. And the same applies to motorcycles. Most are already E10 compatible. As I explained back in March, all Yamahas and Triumphs built since 1990 are E10 safe. So if you've got a 30-year-old Yamaha or a 30-year-old Triumph, you're probably okay to run E10 without any changes. Harleys from as early as 1980 support E10 use. That's what I meant about the California regulations. However, there are exceptions to the rule, and Ducati are one. Bikes built by Ducati before about 2010 are likely to be incompatible with E10 fuel. Now, your handbook should tell you what works and what doesn't in your bike. But just to remind you, if you haven't got a handbook, you can have a look at this page from FEMA, who have actually drawn up a handy list where you can check what your bike will happily take. Now, something else to say is that if you do refuel with E10, maybe you roll up at a filling station and it's the only fuel available, it won't cause an immediate breakdown. It won't cause immediate harm, but you should top up with E5 fuel as soon as you can if you have a non-compatible motorcycle. So basically the advice is sort of run about 2/3 of the tank down and then top up with E5. And the other advice is not to store a non-compatible motorcycle with a tank full of E10. If you do have a non-compatible bikes, there are additives available. For a bike without a catalytic converter, you can get lead replacement additives, and the one that was quoted in an article I read was called Castrol's Classic Valve Master. It helps prevent corrosion caused by the ethanol because it has an ethanol stabilizer in there. And if you have a cat, then there are others available. Miller's Ethanol Protection Additive or Lucas Oil Ethanol Fuel Conditioner are both recommended. So don't panic, it's not to the end of the world, even if, like me, you own an older motorcycle like my Honda 1980 250. Right, a couple of comments have come in. Terry says, in respect to the bollards and the funding, it's amazing how many funds there are semi-hidden away from public view. Yes, you have to know where you are. And Paul has said, thanks for your continuing efforts to broadcast Elevenses. That's very nice of you to say so, Paul. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you for your continuing efforts with CE clothing. I'm always fascinated to read your articles. Terry also asks, any idea as to what E10 might do to rubber or synthetic fuel lines or O-rings? Well, I hope I'll just address that, Terry. Basically, if you leave it in long term, it will damage the bike, but if you just do a one-off top up and you then go back to using E5, you should be okay. And the final thing I've got to say on that is that the government, I seem to have left it out of my little crib sheet here that I use to remember what I'm about to say. The government have guaranteed that E5 fuel will remain as the super unleaded version until at least 5 years from today. So don't panic, it's not the end of the world if you can't get hold of E5 fuel. Samantha has just said they've been using the Lucas ethanol treatment for the last couple of years in their 2001 Honda. Well, it should actually be E10 compatible anyway, Samantha, if it's a 2001. Hondas also go back quite a few years if you check when they were built to take E10 fuel. Right, okay, so next up, what have we got? We got the story about BSA. Now, you probably have noticed that there are quite a few Royal Enfield 650s around on the roads. I have to say, I've been really quite surprised by the number I've seen. The sales success in the UK, at least, has been quite dramatic. So no doubt that's one reason that the rumour mill is hot with the news that Indian automobile company Classic Legends have developed a 650 engine for an upcoming BSA motorcycle. Now, the BSA brand currently only badges up small capacity motorcycles, but it's apparently about to be revamped and revived as a premium motorcycle brand, much as Royal Enfield have obviously done. The 650 engine is reported to be in an advanced stage of testing. It'll be Euro 5 emission compliant, which means it will be able to be launched across the European market. Classic Legends, who are they, you may be asking? Well, they're a Mahindra and Mahindra backed company, and Mahindra are one of the biggest automobile producers in India. You may recall that they actually funded a Moto 3 bike for a while. Mahindra have also secured funding from the UK government, 4.6 million to be precise, and with that they have opened a technical and design centre actually here in the UK, and engineers have been recruited apparently from several different domains, and it may well be that it's the 650 engine that they have been working on. Now, word is that the BSA motorcycle will be built in India, but then assembled overseas. So precisely what that means, I don't know. Maybe they will be shipped to Europe to be assembled here. Maybe they'll be assembled in the UK to become a sort of a premium UK product. Maybe they'll be shipped off to somewhere like Thailand where labour costs are very low. When might we see a prototype? Well, there are no spy shots of anything yet, or I would have put one up for you, but it's just possible a prototype might appear at the 2021 Milan show, which, if I remember correctly, is in October. Okay, so one of the deep joys of travelling down to Devon, as I did last week, is the traffic jams on the A303. Now, you may be disappointed if you have been stuck in them as many times as I have, that the Transport Secretary, Grant Shapps, his decision to approve a controversial project which would include a tunnel near Stonehenge has been argued to be unlawful. Apparently, this is because he disagreed with his expert panel, but with no evidential basis for that disagreement. Now, Shapps gave a go-ahead for what would be a 1.7 billion development, and it would overhaul the 8 miles of the A303 and build a 2-mile tunnel near the Henge itself. The planning permission for this was given in November, despite the planning inspectorate saying it would cause permanent irreversible harm to the UNESCO World Heritage Site, which is Stonehenge. So it's obviously a very controversial decision, and not surprisingly, the Save Stonehenge World Heritage Site organisation is now challenging Grant Shapps' decision in the High Court. The barrister for the group, David Wolf QC, said that there was no proper evidential basis for his overturning the assessment of his expert panel. He says that happened in part because the Secretary of State misconstrued the advice of Historic England. In any case, the Secretary of State's reasons for disagreeing with the advice of his expert panel were unlawfully inadequate and unintelligible. Right, so okay. The expert inspectors basically said that the planning consent for the project should be withheld because of the damage to the wider archaeology-rich landscape. Effectively, if you dig a hole the size of a tunnel, you will be digging up archaeological sites. You just can't avoid them in that area. However, at some point, you have to make a balance on this one. The A303 has been a bottleneck to travel to the southwest for decades. Right, okay. Don't forget, if you enjoy the show, you can head over to my coffee page over there, and you can pick up hundreds of better biking articles over there. Some are free, and some you can access for the miserable sum of just £3 a month. If you buy me a coffee over there, all that content becomes open for you to view for a month. Can't be bad, eh? So from the Better Biking library, I've just wanted to talk quickly about group riding. Now, I have to say that my experience as a participant on group rides ranges from well-organised trips out to absolutely chaotic runs. And I'm quite happy to ride in the first sort. I've survived the latter sort, generally staying at the back watching the carnage in front of me. But quite often, if the run is just too lunatic, I just peel off and go home. I do wait till we stop so I can actually explain why I'm disappearing, except on one occasion when I just thought I'm not even going anywhere near these riders, and I just dropped to the back, waved the back marker goodbye, and turned off. But it's fair to say that even well-organised runs can go wrong. So who's at risk? Well, the thing is, it's not just inexperienced riders or riders who may be taking risks that can get caught out on these rides. I had a buddy some years ago who was a member of an advanced group, and he went on 3 of their advanced rides, and all 3 of them ended in crashes. Plus, one other ride was brought to an unscheduled halt by a motorcycle copper who actually pulled up the entire group and gave them a stiff talking to. So, we have to be cautious about group riding. It's a great fun event when it goes well, but it can go horribly wrong. Now, you might be surprised to know that the US military have actually studied motorcycle crashes in some considerable detail. But if you consider how much money they actually put into training people, then maybe it's not such a big surprise. But according to the US Air Force Academy in Colorado, motorcycle crashes are a leading cause of death for our US Air Force members. Whilst motorcyclists represent only 10% of our active duty force, they account for approximately 40% of our fatal crashes. And what they discovered when they did their study was that the vast majority of the riders were killed riding in groups. And they considered that the problem was largely due to peer pressure, with the less competent riding out of their comfort zone. So what did the US Air Force do? Well, they actually set up a mentoring system with motorcycle groups in their area. And some of the more experienced riders effectively trained up to act as a mentor to the group as a whole. Now, it turned out to be an extremely effective strategy, and the US Army went on to adopt the same approach. Now, would the same approach work here for a riding group? Well, it's hard to say. It might work for a advanced riding club who all know each other and all ride together, but if it's the kind of sort of rolling roadshow that's organised over the internet with a whole range of disparate riders turning up, it's going to be rather more tricky to see how it would work. In any case, it all requires riders who play well with others, and as I've seen for myself, that's not always the case. You see stunting, you see riding at high speed, you see a general lack of respect for slower riders on many group rides. And, the thing I would say about riding in a group is it's all about team activity. It's all about cooperating with everybody. And, if there's somebody who won't play for the team, then frankly, I don't want those riders on groups rides that I've organised. Now, I did some years ago organise a ride, and I had a real problem with one guy who was basically making repeated close flybys of riders as he was overtaking everybody to get back to the front, thanks to the marking system. And one rider, one sort of fairly new, inexperienced rider, was really quite distressed by this and came over and talked to me about it. So I went over there and had a word with him. And his attitude was, if she can't ride in a group, she shouldn't be in a group. And my response to that was, if you can't ride with a group, don't ride in my group. So I got an earful of abuse for that, but he cleared off on his own. And frankly, the ride was much better for it. Where can you get some good advice on group riding? Well, there are 2 excellent articles written by US racer and journalist Nick Iannetch, someone I have talked about for many years. He wrote this pair of articles, and I think they are a good guide to what group riding should be about. They date from the 1990s, but they are still plenty relevant today. They are called The Pace and The Pace Part 2. You should be able to find them very easily with a Google. If you can't, drop me a line and I'll see if I can dig out my own copies of them. But 2 of his principles really sum it all up. He says, when leading, ride for the group. And I would say that that's absolutely a crucial thing to think about. Inexperienced group riders often ride too fast. They think they are setting a good pace at the front. They don't want to hold people up. But the problem is that there's this sort of problem which I call the elastic band effect. If you speed off at the front of the group, some of the group will get held up And the problem with that second half of the group is that they will then try and catch up. And it's a bit like somebody releasing an elastic band. They will actually ride a lot faster than the leader did to catch up. And the further back in the group you go, the faster everybody rides. I swapped roles with a mate of mine after he bitched about me going the wrong way too many times on our trips to Spa. I said, okay, you lead, you find your way to the 24-hour race down at Spa, and I'll go at the back. And well, apart from the fact he got lost as well, he set what he thought was a nice steady pace up the front of the ride. At the back of the ride, there were people hitting 3-figure speeds to try to keep up with people in front. In theory, the group in front should all back off and slow down and then slow the leader down. But of course, that's not what happens. Everybody doesn't want to get lost. So everybody tries to ride faster to keep up. So remember, if you're leading a group, keep the pace at the front way down because you can't see what's going on behind. It will be going bonkers if you're riding too fast. The second principle, he says, is when following, ride with the group. If you can't follow a leader, don't expect anyone to follow you, which is exactly the advice I was making. So perform well. A group ride can be a fun day out. Performed badly, and I hold my own hand up here to a few less than well-organized rides back in the early days. A group ride can easily turn into a nightmare of roadside first aid, frantic phone calls and anxious minutes waiting for the emergency services. It's all very disappointing when that happens, I can tell you. So one of the things that I've done is that I have put together a new mini ebook from the Survival Skills ebook series, which I will pop up a link to just here. There it is. It's £3 if you want to buy it, and it covers organising a ride, mostly organising a ride, but there is a section on how to ride on a ride. And don't forget, last thing is, of course, is that there are potential legal implications. If you have a really serious crash on a group ride that you've organised, and it can be shown that you were riding recklessly at the front of the group, you could be in big trouble. So the more evidence that you can produce to show that you took all due steps to ensure safety of riders behind you, the better equipped you will be to stay in the clear if the worst should happen. All right, okay, that brings me to the end of today's show. It's a slightly longer one again. Just to remember that there are these ebooks and resources over there on the Coffee page, and don't forget, I'm also double posting my Tips on Tuesday and Skills on Saturday posts from Facebook over on Coffee. They're all indexed and they're available for free for 60 days. That's it for today. Thank you all for looking in. Terry's just said he's just suggested a hard copy route map complete with regular rest, rally and meal stops. Give tail end Charlie's plenty of time to get back into the fold without speeding. Yes, absolutely. That's the theory. But trying to stop people from keeping up with the rider in front is not easy. You need a disciplined group to do that. In theory, I would thoroughly agree with you, and I have ridden with groups who are capable of doing that, Terry. Anyway, that's all covered in the book, how to set up rest and recovery stops for people, as well as regrouping stops. So if you're interested, it's over there on Coffee. And did I put it in the comments, didn't I? Yes. So right, okay, that's it for today. Stay safe out there. Enjoy the ride if you do go out for one, but as I said, just watch out for the weather. There is a severe weather warning around today. Right, goodbye all.